My daughter forgot to hang up the phone. I heard, "It's time for him to go. He's becoming a liability." I didn't say anything, but at that moment, something in me broke. I sold the house for $675,000. They came back from their business trip smiling, but there was a surprise waiting for them. The keys didn't fit the door. I'm Eugene Parker, 65 years old, and I thought I knew my daughter Beverly. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things. The phone rang just as I was scraping the last of the meatloaf from my plate, leftover from 3 days ago that didn't taste quite right without Helen's touch. My wife had been gone 18 months now, and I still hadn't figured out how to make her recipes work the same way. The house felt too quiet these days, especially around dinner time when Helen used to hum while she cooked. I glanced at the caller ID and smiled despite the loneliness that always hit me this time of evening. Beverly Crawford, my daughter. She'd taken her husband's name completely when they married back in 2010, something that made Helen proud. Traditional values, my wife had said. "Dad, how are you holding up?" Beverly's voice carried that familiar warmth that made my chest tighten with both love and the kind of grief that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. I settled into Helen's old reading chair, the burgundy fabric worn smooth from years of her evening mystery novels. "Oh, you know me, sweetheart. Just finished dinner and was about to catch the news." I didn't mention it was leftovers from Tuesday, or that I'd been staring at Helen's photo on the mantel for the better part of an hour, wondering how a man builds a life with someone for 40 years and then suddenly doesn't know how to live without them. The house we'd bought in 2001 when Beverly was 16 and complaining about having to change schools her junior year. "Are you eating enough, Dad? You know you can order groceries online now, right? I showed you that app last time I was there." Beverly's voice had that patient tone she used when she thought I was being stubborn about technology. "I'm eating plenty," I said, though the next words gave me pause. "Had a little scare yesterday, though. Forgot to turn off the burner under my coffee pot. Good thing I smelled it burning from the living room." There was silence on her end. I could picture her face, that same little crease between her eyebrows that Helen got when she was worried about something. "Dad, maybe we should talk about getting someone to check on you more regularly. You know, just to make sure you're okay." "Vincent thinks I'm doing fine," I said, referring to my son-in-law. "Really, Beverly? How's your business trip going? You're in Las Vegas, right? Conference ends Wednesday?" "Yes, we fly back Thursday morning. Vincent's been handling most of the client meetings while I sit through these endless presentations about digital marketing trends." She laughed, but it sounded forced, like she was already thinking about something else. "Listen, Dad, I should probably get going. Vincent and I have dinner plans with some potential investors." "Of course, sweetheart, you two work so hard. I love you." "Love you too, Dad. Take care of yourself, okay? We'll talk when I get back." I heard a click, then rustling sounds. She must have dropped the phone in her purse, I thought, reaching to hang up my end, but then I heard voices, muffled but clear enough through her phone's microphone. "Vincent, you see how he's deteriorating?" Beverly's voice, no longer warm and caring. The tone was completely different, cold, calculating. "He forgot to turn off the stove yesterday. What if he burns the house down?" My hand froze on the receiver. Ice spread through my chest like I'd been shot in a firefight back in my Navy days. "It's time for assisted living, Beverly," Vincent's voice, matter of fact, like he was discussing a business transaction. "He's becoming a liability, not an asset anymore." Liability. The word hit me like a physical blow. Not burden, liability. Like I was a problem on a balance sheet that needed to be managed. "Your dad's house is worth almost $700,000 now." Beverly's tone had shifted to pure calculation. "With Phoenix's market boom, we could probably get $675,000, maybe more." "Exactly." Vincent sounded pleased with himself. "We sell it, put him somewhere decent but affordable. There are places for $3,500 a month. And finally get the capital for my next development project. The Scottsdale deal." My daughter actually laughed. Not a happy laugh. A satisfied, pleased with herself laugh. "God, Vincent, you should have seen him tonight. So grateful just to hear from me. He has no idea we're planning this. The longer we wait, the more confused he'll get," Vincent continued. "We should move while he still trusts us completely, while he'll sign whatever we put in front of him." The phone slipped from my numb fingers. clattering onto the hardwood floor Helen and I had installed together back in 2003. Every board laid with thoughts of our family's future, our retirement, the grandchildren we'd hoped Beverly would give us someday. I sat in the sudden silence of my empty house, staring at Helen's photograph on the end table. Her eyes seemed to bore into mine with an expression I couldn't quite read. Disappointment, warning, or maybe just the terrible knowledge that comes to those who've already left this world behind. The grandfather clock in the hallway, Helen's 20th anniversary gift to me back in 2001 when we bought this house, ticked steadily in the growing darkness. Outside, I could hear the evening sounds of our Phoenix suburb. Air conditioners humming against the desert heat, neighbors coming home from work, life continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Something cold and hard settled in my chest, replacing the warmth I'd felt hearing my daughter's voice just moments before. My hands, weathered from 20 years in the Navy and 23 years running my own construction business, slowly curled into fists. They thought I was a liability. They thought I was confused, helpless, ready to be managed and warehoused like an inconvenient piece of furniture. They were already spending my money, already planning their new life built on what they saw as my grave. But I wasn't dead yet, and I wasn't nearly as confused as they believed. 20 years in the Navy had taught me a few things about strategy and execution. You don't survive that long in the service by being soft or stupid, and you sure don't make it through combat zones without learning how to plan under pressure. After discharge, 23 years running Parker Construction had taught me even more about reading people, protecting what's mine, and never letting anyone take advantage of my good nature. I stood up slowly from Helen's chair, her face watching me from that silver frame on the end table. The house felt different now, like the walls themselves had heard my daughter's betrayal and were holding their breath, waiting to see what I'd do about it. Walking to the kitchen, I opened the drawer where Helen had always kept our important papers organized in manila folders. A place for everything and everything in its place, she used to say. My fingers found the folder I was looking for. 22 years of financial records that told the story of how much I'd sacrificed for Beverly's future. University of Arizona tuition receipts, $60,000 over 4 years from 2003 to 2007. I remembered those double shifts, coming home with concrete dust in my hair and desert sand ground into my work boots. Helen would have dinner waiting and would massage my shoulders while I paid bills at this very kitchen table, the one I'd built myself from oak lumber. "Roy, you're working yourself to death," Helen had said one particularly rough night in 2005. Watching me calculate how to afford Beverly's spring semester while still keeping up with our mortgage payments. "She's smart, but maybe community college for the first 2 years? No," I'd told her, stubborn as always. "She deserves better than we had. She's got the brains for anything she wants to do." Helen had kissed the top of my head, her hands warm on my tired shoulders. "Just don't give her so much that she forgets to be grateful." I should have listened. God almighty, I should have listened to my wife. The wedding receipts were in there too, itemized down to the last flower arrangement. $30,000 for one day back in 2010. I'd told Beverly we could afford maybe $12,000, $15,000 if we really stretched our budget. But she'd cried, actually cried, about wanting her dream wedding. "Daddy, this is my one special day," she'd sobbed in our living room, Vincent sitting there looking uncomfortable while my 25-year-old daughter had a meltdown. I've been dreaming about this since I was little. I'd worked weekends for 8 months, installing tile and doing electrical work for contractor friends who paid me cash under the table. Helen had taken a part-time job at Walmart to help with the costs, something that embarrassed Beverly to no end. "Daddy, you're the best father in the world," Beverly had whispered during our father-daughter dance, her head on my shoulder, that expensive wedding dress rustling against my rented tuxedo. "I'll never forget this. I'll never forget what you and Mom sacrificed for me." But she had forgotten. Just like she'd forgotten who co-signed her first car loan when her credit wasn't good enough. Just like she'd forgotten who made the phone calls that got Vincent his real estate license when he was struggling to find steady work. I found the bank statements from this past year, and they told a story that made my jaw clench with anger. When Vincent's development project in Tempe fell through last spring, something about permits and environmental issues he'd failed to research properly. They'd lost their condo to foreclosure. They'd moved in with me temporarily just until they could get back on their feet. That was 9 months ago now. 9 months of me paying increased utility bills, buying groceries for 3 adults instead of one lonely widower. 9 months of Vincent using my garage as storage for his construction equipment, of Beverly leaving her marketing materials spread across Helen's dining room table. Vincent would pat my shoulder and call me the most generous father-in-law in Arizona. Beverly would hug me tight and say, "Dad, we'll pay you back every penny when Vincent's next project comes through." They'd been working again for 6 months now, both pulling in decent salaries. Beverly had landed a marketing position with a Scottsdale resort, and Vincent was doing project management for a commercial builder. Good money, steady work. But they'd never mentioned moving out, never brought up paying rent, never said a word about paying me back. The anniversary dinner I'd paid for just last month, $180 at Ruth's Chris, because Vincent said they deserved to celebrate their success. The car repairs when Beverly's SUV needed a new transmission, $20,800 that wiped out most of my emergency fund. The new laptop Vincent needed for work, another $1,200 because his old one was too slow for the software he needed. Every time I'd opened my wallet, because that's what family does. That's what Helen would have wanted me to do. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, Helen's and mine, still unchanged after 18 months. Her jewelry box sat on the dresser, her reading glasses folded beside the lamp where she'd left them the night before her final hospital stay. I opened the bottom drawer where we'd kept our important documents and pulled out our house deed. Eugene and Helen Parker, purchased November 2001. No liens, no co-signers, no complications. My name only now that Helen was gone, God rest her soul. Standing in the bedroom where Helen had spent her last days, surrounded by everything we'd built together, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp as broken glass in my chest. But underneath it, something harder was forming. Something cold and tactical that reminded me of my Navy days when split-second decisions meant the difference between mission success and disaster. They wanted to warehouse me and sell my life's work. They thought I was too old, too confused, too grateful for their attention to fight back. They thought they could manipulate me into signing whatever papers they put in front of me. I walked to my home office, the small room that had been Beverly's bedroom until she left for college, and pulled out the business card I'd kept in my desk drawer for 2 years. Frederick Dixon, real estate attorney. Helen had insisted we meet with him after her cancer diagnosis, just to make sure our affairs were in order and our wishes were clear. It was time for another consultation. I looked at the card, running my thumb over the embossed lettering. Outside, Phoenix was settling into another warm October evening, the kind Helen used to love when we'd sit on our back patio and plan our retirement together. Well, I was retired now, all right, and I had some planning to do. The next morning, I walked through my house like a stranger seeing it for the first time. But instead of seeing home, I was seeing what Beverly and Vincent saw. Square footage, market value, liquid assets waiting to be converted into their next business venture. In the kitchen, I ran my hand along the granite countertop I'd installed myself back in 2004, working evenings and weekends because we couldn't afford to hire contractors. Helen had picked out the pattern, gray with gold veining that caught the morning light just right. She'd made coffee on this counter every morning for 17 years until the cancer took her strength away. This was the room where 2-year-old Beverly had taken her first wobbly steps, from the refrigerator to Helen's outstretched arms. We'd both cried with joy that Christmas morning in 1987, Helen scooping our daughter up and spinning her around while I fumbled for our old camera. "Our baby's walking in our house," Helen had whispered through her tears. "In the house we're going to build for her. It took us 14 more years to build that house, but we'd done it. Every sacrifice worth it to give Beverly the childhood we'd dreamed of providing." The living room held 22 years of Christmas mornings since we'd moved in. I could still see 16-year-old Beverly's face that first Christmas in 2001, complaining about having to leave her friends in our old apartment, but secretly thrilled with her bigger bedroom and the pool out back. I climbed the stairs to what used to be Beverly's room, still painted the soft lavender she'd chosen for her 17th birthday. This was the room where I'd helped her with college applications, where Helen had taught her to drive using the empty parking lot at the high school, where she'd gotten ready for prom with 3 of her girlfriends fussing over hair and makeup. Standing in that doorway, I remembered the conversation Helen and I had in this very spot after Beverly's wedding reception in 2010. "Do you think we did right by her?" Helen had asked, leaning against me as we watched Beverly's friends clean up the last of the decorations from our backyard. "What do you mean?" "Maybe we gave her too much, made things too easy." Helen's voice had been thoughtful, almost worried. She's never had to really struggle for anything, Roy. Never had to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. Never had to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I'd kissed the top of my wife's head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. That's what we wanted, remember? To give her better than what we had. I know. But sometimes I wonder if struggle builds character. If maybe we built a beautiful house but forgot to teach her how to appreciate the foundation. Now, standing in Beverly's old room 13 years later, I understood what Helen had been trying to tell me. We'd given our daughter everything, and in doing so, we'd taught her to expect everything. To feel entitled to everything, including my house, my money, my life decisions. I walked back downstairs and picked up Frederick Dixon's business card, dialing the number with hands that were steady as stone. Dixon and Associates, this is Frederick speaking. Mr. Dixon, this is Eugene Parker. Helen Parker's husband. We met a couple years back about estate planning. Eugene, of course. I'm so sorry about Helen. She was a wonderful woman. What can I do for you today? I need to discuss selling my house. Quickly and quietly. There was a pause. May I ask what's driving the urgency? I thought about Beverly's laugh when she'd called me a liability, about Vincent's cold calculation of my worth, about 22 years of memories being reduced to a real estate transaction in their minds. My family thinks I need managing, Mr. Dixon. Maybe it's time I showed them exactly how sharp my mind really is. We met that afternoon at his office on Camelback Road. Frederick was professional, thorough, and thankfully didn't ask too many questions about my sudden decision to sell. Phoenix's housing market is incredibly strong right now, Eugene. Properties like yours in established neighborhoods are exactly what investors are looking for. He pulled out a market analysis on his tablet. Well-maintained, original owner, good bones. You're sitting on a gold mine. How fast can these things happen? With the right buyer, and I have several cash investors in my network, we could have a contract signed within 48 hours and close within a week. A week. Beverly and Vincent were returning Thursday morning. That would give me exactly the timeline I needed. There's one more thing, I said. I need this kept completely confidential until the sale is final. My family doesn't know about this decision yet. Frederick nodded with understanding. Attorney-client privilege applies to real estate transactions as well, Eugene. Your business is your business. The next morning, Howard Mitchell from Southwest Property Solutions came to evaluate my house. He was maybe 50, professional, and impressed with what he saw. Mr. Parker, this is exceptional work throughout. Original owner maintenance, custom details, quality materials. We walked through every room while Howard took photos and measurements. You did most of this yourself? 20 years. Navy, then 23 years running my own construction business. I believe in doing things right the first time. It shows. The tile work in these bathrooms, the crown molding, this kitchen renovation, this is contractor quality work. Howard was typing notes on his tablet as we walked. My investors are going to love this property. What kind of number are we looking at? Given the condition, location, and current market conditions, I'm confident we can move this at $675,000. Cash offer, 7-day close, no contingencies, $675,000. More than Beverly and Vincent had estimated in their cruel phone conversation. More than enough to fund my new life, on my terms. Let's do it. The next 48 hours moved with military precision. Frederick handled the legal paperwork while Howard coordinated with his cash buyers. Everything was professional, efficient, no complications. On Wednesday morning, I drove to AAA Emergency Locksmith and had all my door locks changed. The technician, a guy named Gerald Stevens, who looked like he'd been changing locks since before Beverly was born, worked quickly and professionally. These are quality locks you had before, Gerald commented as he removed the brass hardware Helen had picked out in 2001. But these new ones will give you better security. Harder to pick, harder to bump. Security. That was exactly what I needed right now. Wednesday afternoon, Frederick called with the news I'd been waiting for. Eugene, everything's finalized. Wire transfer is complete. $675,000 less closing costs has been deposited to your account. I looked at the confirmation paperwork. More money than I'd ever seen in one place. More money than Beverly and Vincent had dreamed their liability could control. Phase 1 complete. Time for Phase 2. Wednesday evening, I drove to Desert Vista Senior Living and signed a lease for a furnished one-bedroom apartment. The property manager, Mrs. Ruth Anderson, was professional and understanding when I explained I needed immediate occupancy. "Many of our residents are transitioning from family homes, Mr. Parker," she said as we walked through the clean, comfortable unit. "It's always a big change, but most find it liberating once they settle in." Liberating. Yes, that was exactly the word I'd been looking for. The apartment was simple but well-appointed. Everything I needed to start fresh. A kitchenette for my simple meals, a living area with a view of Camelback Mountain, and a bedroom that would hold the essentials from my old life. The monthly rent of $2,800 included utilities and access to the community center, fitness facilities, and scheduled activities. Month-to-month lease if you prefer flexibility, Mrs. Anderson explained. Some folks aren't sure how long they'll want to stay when they first arrive. I signed the papers and handed over the first month's rent plus security deposit in cash. Nearly $6,000 that would have seemed impossible to spend so casually just a week ago. That evening, I made one final preparation for Beverly and Vincent's return. I drove to Best Buy and purchased a small wireless security camera disguised as a phone charger. The young salesman, probably Beverly's age, walked me through the smartphone app with patient enthusiasm. It's motion-activated, streams live video directly to your phone, and has a 12-hour battery life, he explained. Perfect for keeping an eye on your property when you're not around. Back home, I positioned the camera near the front door outlet, angling it perfectly to capture anyone entering. The view through my phone app showed the entire entryway, including the spot where I planned to leave my final message. Thursday morning, I packed the last of my belongings. Helen's jewelry box went carefully into my suitcase, along with our wedding photos, the novel she'd been reading when she died, bookmark still marking page 247, and my Navy discharge papers. Everything else would stay for the new owners, or for Beverly and Vincent to figure out. I wrote my note in the careful handwriting that Helen had always admired, the same penmanship that had gotten me commendations for my reports back in the Navy. "Dear Beverly and Vincent," it began. "If you're reading this, my plan worked perfectly. I heard your phone conversation about putting me away because I'm becoming a liability. I heard you calculating how much money you'd make selling my house. The house has been sold for $675,000 cash. The money is safely in my new bank account where it will stay. I've moved to a place where I'm appreciated, not tolerated. Don't worry about me. Worry about your own housing situation. Your belongings have been packed and are being stored at Phoenix Moving and Storage on McDowell Road. You have 30 days to claim them before storage fees begin. I gave you everything I had for 38 years. You repaid me by planning to warehouse me so you could steal my life's work. I hope the lesson was worth the cost. With disappointment, Dad." I taped the envelope to the inside of the front door at eye level, where they couldn't possibly miss it. Standing in my empty living room one final time, I looked around at the rooms that had held my family's entire life. The bay window where Helen used to read on Sunday mornings, the fireplace where we'd opened Christmas presents, the dining room where we'd celebrated Beverly's graduation, her engagement, her wedding planning. "It's done, sweetheart," I said aloud to Helen's memory. "Justice served." I locked the house with my new keys, tested the camera feed one more time from my car, and drove to my apartment to wait. Thursday afternoon at 4:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with motion detection. Vincent's black SUV pulled into my former driveway. I watched through the camera as Beverly stepped out first, stretching after the drive from Sky Harbor Airport. Vincent grabbed their suitcases from the back, both of them moving with the casual confidence of people coming home to what they thought was theirs. They approached the front door like they owned it. Beverly pulled out her keys, inserted one into the lock I'd had changed just yesterday. The key didn't turn. I watched her frown, try again, jiggle the key with growing frustration. "That's weird. My key's not working." Vincent moved closer, his expression shifting from tired to concerned. "Let me try the back door." I watched him disappear around the side of the house while Beverly continued struggling with the front lock. When Vincent returned 3 minutes later, his face was dark with alarm. "Beverly, someone changed these locks. All of them." "What? That's impossible. Dad doesn't even know any locksmiths." Beverly's voice was rising with panic. "And why isn't he answering his phone?" They managed to get inside through the kitchen window I'd deliberately left unlocked. I wanted them to find my note after all. Moments later, Beverly opened the front door from inside, and both of them stopped dead when they saw my white envelope taped at eye level. Beverly's hand trembled as she tore it open. Vincent read over her shoulder. I watched their faces change from confusion to shock to horror as they processed my words. "He sold the house." Beverly's voice rose to a near shriek. "How could he do this to us?" Vincent snatched the note from her hands, reading it again like the words might change. "That old bastard was playing us the whole time, acting confused and helpless while he planned this. $675,000. Beverly was crying now, her careful makeup streaking down her cheeks. He kept it all. That money was supposed to be our future. "Your future?" Vincent snapped, years of suppressed resentment finally boiling over. "This is your father, Beverly. You should have handled this better instead of calling him a liability." "My fault? You're the one who said we should put him in assisted living. You're the one who wanted to use his house for your development project." I watched them argue in my former living room about being homeless, just as they'd planned to make me homeless in their nursing home. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on me. I turned off the camera feed. I'd seen enough. Walking to my small kitchen, I opened the bottle of wine Helen and I had been saving for our 40th anniversary, a celebration that never came because cancer took her first. I poured a glass and raised it toward Helen's photo, now positioned on my new nightstand. "To you, my love, justice served." The wine tasted like freedom, like dignity restored, like a man who'd finally learned the difference between being generous and being a fool. For the first time since Helen's death, I felt completely whole. Eugene Parker had taught his daughter a lesson she'd never forget. Don't mistake kindness for weakness, and never underestimate a man who's built everything he owns with his own two hands.